Hi there, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com, and today I've got a great product review in store for you. This is the one that everyone's been waiting for. It's the brand new 3-rail O-scale Vision Line Union Pacific 4884 Big Boy from Lionel. Okay, so let's start things off with a brief history on the real Big Boy, and then we'll get into Lionel's Vision Line rendition. The real Big Boys were built by Alco for the Union Pacific between 1941 and 1944. A total of 25 Big Boys were constructed, and they remained in service until the last one was retired in 1959. Now, of the 25 Big Boys that were built, 8 of those are still in existence today, and this road number, 4014, is currently being restored to operating condition by the Union Pacific. And so the fact that the 4014 is in the news and it's being restored makes the Vision Line release of the Big Boy all the more exciting. The Big Boy, as its name implies, was gigantic. The length of the engine by itself was just over 85 feet, and the combined length of the engine and the tender was just over 132 feet. The Big Boy is a 4884 articulated coal-fired steam locomotive. For you newbies, the 4884 refers to the wheel arrangement on the engine. It means that you've got 4 wheels on the lead truck, 8 drive wheels here, another 8 drive wheels back here, and then 4 wheels on the trailing truck. And so they designated it as a 4884. Now, as for the articulated part, that means that the front set of drivers here pivots on an articulation point to help the engine get around curves. Originally, the 4884 type locomotives were going to be designated as the Wasatch series, named for the Wasatch Mountains between Wyoming and Utah. But as the story goes, at one point an employee who was working on building the Big Boys took a piece of chalk and wrote Big Boy on the side of the boiler, and the nickname stuck, and so to this day they're known as Big Boys instead of Wasatches. Now, I don't know if that's actually true, but that's how the legend goes. Now let's talk about Lionel's Vision Line rendition of the Big Boy. Now, the Big Boy is not new to O-scale. It's been done before, nor is it new to Lionel. They've done it before, but they've never done a Vision Line rendition of the Big Boy, and that makes it special. For those of you who are new to the hobby, the Vision Line from Lionel represents the very best of the best. They pull out all the stops and put all of the best features and details into a Vision Line engine. And so the result is most likely the best O-scale Big Boy that has ever been done, and really one of the best O-scale engines that has ever been done, period. And that's really true of all of the Vision Line engines, and it holds true for this engine as well. So, Lionel offered the Vision Line Big Boy in their 2014 Volume 1 catalog, and then these engines started showing up in train stores just in time for Christmas of 2014. Now, Lionel is offering 7 different road numbers for the Vision Line Big Boy. They've got the 4014 that you see here, but they've also got the 4004, the 4005, the 4006, the 4012, the 4017, and the 4018. And all 7 road numbers that they're offering represent Big Boys that are still in existence today. Now, I'm imagining that the 4014 is going to be the most popular Big Boy that they sell because of the restoration work that's going on right now with the real 4014. But no matter which road number you buy, they're all the same on the inside. The only difference is the road number. Before we go any further, I want to quickly show you a couple pictures. First of all, here's a picture of the box that the Big Boy comes in. It's a very sleek looking box, just like all of the other Vision Line boxes that Lionel has put out. Also, here's a shot of the 2 LCS items Lionel included with the Big Boy. LCS is Lionel's layout control system. It's a relatively new system that they are promoting heavily, and as part of that promotion, they included 2 items with the Big Boy. You get an LCS sensor track and an LCS power pack. Now, I actually like LCS. I think it's really cool, but it's much too big of a topic to get into in this video. There's just not time. So I will do a separate video on LCS at a later date, but I did want to point these out. It's pretty cool that Lionel packaged them with the Big Boy. Let's go over some quick stats and facts on this model, and then we'll take a look at the details and the features. The overall length from the front of the engine to the back of the tender is right at 34 inches. The combined weight of the engine and the tender is 12 pounds 7 ounces. This engine has really good pulling power, 3 pounds 15 ounces of pulling power. And the minimum required curve to operate this engine is 0.72, and I would strongly recommend sticking to that minimum curve requirement. If you do decide to operate this engine on anything less than 0.72, you're going to have to proceed at your own risk, because at best you're going to have some really bad overhang, and at worst the engine just won't operate on a curve that's too narrow. So again, I would strongly recommend sticking to that 0.72 requirement. On the inside, the locomotive is powered by a very large Pitman flywheel motor, and that motor is responsible for driving both sets of drivers on the engine. Also on the inside, there are 3 fan-driven smoke units. Back in the tender are the electronics packages for the Legacy control system, as well as Legacy RailSounds. The sound system on the big boy is very cool. You've got the 2 speakers back in the tender like you normally would, but there's also a soundboard and a speaker up in the front of the engine, and that is something that you typically don't see on O-scale steam engines. Normally, the sound system and the speakers are located in the tender because there's lots of room back there, but on a Vision Line steam engine like the big boy, they took the extra step of putting an extra speaker up here in the front of the engine. The last time I saw something like this was when Lionel did the Vision Line Challenger a few years back. Having that extra speaker up in the front of the engine makes a big difference in terms of the sound, because when you do things like blowing the whistle and sounding the bell, those sound effects come from the front of the engine instead of them all coming from back in the tender, and so the overall effect is much better. As with all high-end Lionel O-scale steam engines, there are 3 ways you can operate this engine. The preferred method is to use Lionel's Legacy command system, because that will give you access to all of the engine's advanced features. However, you can also control the engine with Lionel's classic TMCC command system, or you can operate the engine conventionally. So that takes care of the general information that you need to know about the big boy. Now let's go in for a closer look at some of the wonderful details and features on this model. Let's take a look at the pilot area. As you can see, Lionel did an amazing job here. We've got some great looking separately applied hoses here with some hand painted detailing on the end. On the front of the engine here, this piece swings open like that to reveal a dummy scale coupler. There it is. And if you want to double head the engine, you can swap that out for this dummy O-gauge coupler that's also packaged with the engine when you buy it. And then when you want to hide it, you just swing it back shut like that. Above that, we've got a great looking separately applied coupler cut bar assembly. Up here we've got this nice UP plate. There's an operating headlight right here with lighted number boards on either side. We've got safety tread on the walkways up here, and take a look at all this detailing. It looks absolutely fantastic. Here's a quick look at one of the front cylinders, and you can also see some more of the detailing on these air pumps. Check out all this action on the front set of drivers. All of this stuff looks fantastic when the engine is in operation. And then up here we've got the start of some of this great piping detail, and it gets even better as we get back toward the second set of drivers. Here we have the second set of drivers, and again, lots of action going on down here. And check out these drivers, by the way. They look great. Up here, we've got all sorts of intricate piping going on. I'm going to tilt the engine back a bit to give you a slightly better view, and even at that, I'm not sure you're going to be able to see it all, but it looks awesome up here. The big boy has a gigantic firebox, as you can see, and on this model it looks fantastic. There's lots of nice rivet detailing as well as lots of separately applied piping, as you can see. Down here, this engine has the variable ash pan glow effect, and the way that works is that when the engine is on, there's a red glow that emanates from this ash pan, and then as the engine picks up speed, that red glow becomes more intense. Now we come to one of my favorite spots on this model, which is the area around and underneath the cab, and that includes the big firebox that I just showed you. We've got this sprawling pipework that goes all over the place. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's a separately applied metal step right here. There's a very nice detail piece here that really pops, and then we've got these beautiful bright red knobs. Now, as a side note, I've seen these bright red knobs on the big boy for years, but up until now, I've never known what they were for. I've said many times that I am by no means the world's leading expert on steam engines, nor am I an expert on the big boy. And I've seen these things for years, but I've never known what they were for. But seeing as I'm doing a review on the big boy, I figured, well, I better find out what those things were used for. So I posted that question onto the OGR forum, and I got a response. And apparently these knobs were used to dump the ash out of the gigantic ash pan that was on the big boy. So you learn something new every day. Anyway, down here we've got a very nicely detailed trailing truck. And then right here is one of the premium features on the big boy, the steam blowdown effect. The way that the steam blowdown effect works is that there's this little piece right here, and there's one just like it on the other side of the engine in the same spot. And on the underside of each of these pieces is a little hole that's connected to some tubing, which leads to a fan-driven smoke unit on the inside of the engine. And so the way it works is that when you press and hold the 6 key on the Legacy or TMCC remote, it causes a jet of smoke to be blown out of this hole as well as the hole on the other side, thereby simulating a steam blowdown on a real big boy. It looks great, and it's got a really cool sound effect to go with it as well. Now, this is not the first time that Lionel has done the steam blowdown effect. The last time that I saw it was on one of the very first Vision Line steam engines that Lionel did back around 2009, and that was the Santa Fe 210-10-2. It looked great then, it looks great now, and you'll see it in just a few minutes when we start this thing up. Now let's move up and take a look at the boiler. Starting on the front, we've got a separately applied metal grab iron right here, and then we've got the start of the 2 metal handrails that run down either side of the boiler. On the front here, we've got some nice rivet and hinge detail. There are 2 operating marker lights, and then we've got lighted number boards above those, and a really well done bell here in the middle. And then of course the front of the boiler opens up like that to reveal a very detailed interior, which you typically don't see on non-Vision Line steam engines. As we move down the side of the boiler, we've got some nice legible builder's plates right here. There's safety tread on the walkways on either side of the boiler. You can see the end of the throttle assembly right here, and also some of this nice separately applied detailing up here. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering what the legible builder's plates say, here's a close-up shot. The top plate says American Locomotive Company, Schenectady Works, December 1941. The plate below that says Union Pacific Equipment Trust Series C, the Pennsylvania Company for Insurance on Lives and Granting Annuities. And then the little plate to the left says the Superheater Company, Superheater patented in USA, and then I think it's got some patent numbers. They're really, really small. And then below that it says other patents pending. About halfway down the boiler, we've got some more nice detailing on the throttle reach rod, and there's some nice cast-in details as well. And then down here toward the end where the cab begins, we've got a separately applied metal grab iron here. And then we've got one of the 2 front windows on the cab. And of course, these do have clear plastic inserts in them. Here's a look at the exterior of the cab. We've got a nice crisp 4014 right here and some legible signage below that. There's safety tread on this walkway down here. There's a separately applied metal grab iron here, and there's one on the other side as well. And then we've got these windows, and there are 2 sliding sections like that. So you could close it all up like that, or perhaps you could open one like that, or open all of them like that. The interior of the cab on the big boy is phenomenal. In my opinion, it is the most detailed cab interior that I've ever seen on an O-scale steam engine. I know you can't see it very well from this angle. I'll try to get a better view when I come around to look at the back of the engine, but it is absolutely outstanding. On the inside, there are two hand-painted crew figures sitting in two very detailed seats. The walls are detailed, the ceiling is detailed, there's safety tread on the floor, there are a number of hand-painted valves and gauges on the back head, there's a red glow in the firebox, and there's an overhead light in the cab that turns on when the engine is at a standstill and automatically turns off when the engine starts moving. Here's a quick look at the other side of the big boy. The detailing is a little bit different than the side we just saw, but it looks outstanding. Now let's take a look at the top of the boiler. Starting in the front, you can see the top of the bell and all of the nice detailing that's associated with it. And you can see some of these separately applied conduits that on the real big boy supply electricity to the bell and the marker lights and the number boards. Moving back, we come to the twin smokestacks on the big boy. These look great in operation and they're designed very, very well. When the engine is in operation, instead of the smoke coming out of both stacks at the same time, you get a much more realistic alternating puff sequence. So the smoke goes puff, 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 and so on, and it looks very realistic and very cool. Packaged with the engine when you buy it is this optional smoke deflector piece. It's made of metal and it snaps in place like that. It's open on the backside, and so the result is that instead of the smoke going straight up into the air, it shoots out the back. But Lionel was very clever in how they designed this thing, because I'm guessing that at some point along the way, when Lionel was testing all of this out, they discovered that with the smoke deflector in place, the front smokestack is pretty well obstructed, and that probably caused the smoke to not be able to get out effectively. It probably caused the smoke unit to get clogged up and overheat or otherwise function incorrectly. And so to compensate for that, Lionel put a very clever design into how all of this works. The smoke deflector is held on with a magnet, as you can see here. But that magnet also actuates a switch inside the engine that changes how these smokestacks function. And what it does is that it deactivates the front smokestack and then changes the functionality of the rear smokestack to make it pull double duty and do the work of both smokestacks. That may be a little bit confusing, so let me try to clarify. When you run the engine without the smoke deflector like it is now, you get normal operation, which in terms of smoke means puff, 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 puff. When you put the smoke deflector on top of it, what happens on the inside is that this smokestack is deactivated and this one starts to pull double duty and do the work of both. And so instead of getting puff, 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 you get puff, 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 puff. And that works because you can't see that. With the smoke deflector in place, all you can see is the smoke coming out of the back. And the smoke is going puff, 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 as it should. And so even though there's only one smokestack at work, it looks as if both are still working. And then, of course, when you remove it, it goes back to normal operations and you get puff, 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 puff. It's very cool. When it comes time to load smoke fluid into the smoke unit that's responsible for the twin smokestacks on the big boy, it's a little bit different than most other high-end O-scale steam engines out there. You know, on most O-scale steam engines that have multiple stacks, it usually doesn't matter which stack you pour the smoke fluid down because they all go down to the same smoke unit. But even though I said the big boy has 3 smoke units on it, the smoke unit in charge of these twin smokestacks has 2 smoke generators within the same unit. So each stack has its own smoke generator. So when it comes time to load smoke fluid into this thing, you do need to pour smoke fluid down both stacks, not just one. Moving back behind the twin smokestacks, we've got all of this great hand-painted detailing here, and in the middle of all that is the whistle. And of course, the big boy does feature the whistle steam smoke effect. When you first take the engine out of the box, this whistle assembly will not be attached to the engine. It'll be packaged separately in a little Ziploc baggie. Let me see if I can detach this real quick to show you. There we go. That's how it'll look when it comes out of the box. and then this is in a little Ziploc baggie, and attaching it is very easy. There's a couple little tabs, there's a wire and a little tab here, and those go into holes on the engine. There we go. And then the back side is held down with a magnet. And so once it's installed, that's how it looks. The hole for the smoke is right here, and of course when you blow the whistle, smoke shoots out of that hole and it looks fantastic, and you'll get to see it in action in just a few minutes when we start this thing up. When it comes time to add more smoke fluid to the whistle steam smoke unit, you simply pour the smoke fluid directly down the whistle hole. Now, Lionel recommends that you remove this whistle assembly to gain clear access to the hole so that you don't make a mess. But if you've got one of these needle point dispensers like I have, I got this from JT's Mega Steam, you can just stick it down the hole and give it a squeeze. Moving on back, we've got a nicely detailed sand dome with some separately applied grab irons on either side. And then behind that, we've got a nice steam dome. Behind that, we've got some nicely detailed pop-off valves and some hand-painted detailing here as well. And then back beyond that, we've got another nice looking sand dome with separately applied grab irons on either side. The top of the rear sand dome can be removed to reveal a whole bunch of stuff. We've got the run program switch, the Odyssey speed control on-off switch, and then we've got the 3 on-off switches for the 3 smoke units on the big boy. There's the main smoke unit that's responsible for the twin smokestacks, the whistle steam smoke unit, and then the blowdown steam smoke unit. Right here is the master volume control for the speaker that's in the engine. The tender has its own master volume knob. And then right here is the smoke fill hole for the smoke unit responsible for the steam blowdown effect. And so to load smoke fluid into that smoke unit, you simply pour smoke fluid right down this hole. The lid to the steam dome is held on with magnets, and when you put it back, make sure that this little plug with the rubber gasket goes into the smoke fill hole, like that. As we make our way toward the back, we've got some nice cast-in details here, as well as on the roof of the cab, and then right here is a little vent that opens up like that. Okay, so here's a look at the back of the engine. Starting at the bottom, we've got the drawbar, and then above that is the infrared sensor that allows the electronics in the engine to communicate with the electronics in the tender. Above that, we've got some nice details on either side, and then we've got that hinged drop plate. And then on either side of the cab, we've got these great looking curtains. No, they're not real curtains. They're made of metal, but they look fantastic. And then above that, we've even got a separately applied curtain rod. And then finally, at the very top, you can see the start of that very detailed cab ceiling. It's probably kind of hard to see the interior of the cab right now, so let me bring in a special tool that I made just for this video. It's sort of a gooseneck LED that I built. And now you can see some of the fantastic detailing on that back head. I mean, it's outstanding. Look at all that. And as I said, there is a red glow in the firebox there when the engine is in operation. But just look at that. It's awesome. I've moved the camera around a bit to give you a better view of one of the sides of the cab interior. So if we bring the light in again, you can see one of the front windows right here. And then we've got one of the 2 hand-painted crew figures, and he's sitting in a very detailed seat. And then behind him, we've got what looks to be an extra seat, or maybe it's a box for storage or something. There's one behind the other crew figure as well. It looks great, and the whole thing just looks fantastic. Here's a look at the underside of the big boy. There's a whole lot of wheels here, but essentially it's the same thing you'd see on any O-scale steam engine. We've got 4 pickup rollers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've also got 4 traction tires, 1, 2, 3, 4. Under the cab area of the locomotive on the fireman's side, you'll find the Lionel Vision Line serial number sticker, and that lets you know that you didn't buy a fake. And then here's something that I like. On the underside of the drop plate, they've got this plastic liner so that the drop plate does not scratch up your tender as the engine runs around your layout. Okay, so that takes care of the engine. Now let's take a look at the tender. Starting down here, we've got some very detailed truck side frames. Above that, we've got some nice add-on detail parts, which you typically don't see on most O-scale steam engines. Right over here, we've got an add-on metal ladder with some nice detailing behind it. There's another add-on ladder over here. On the side face of the tender, we've got a nice crisp Union Pacific logo, and then a fire hose only sign down here, and there's some nice rivet detail all over the place. There's a legible plate right here, and it reads Union Pacific Equipment Trust Series C, the Pennsylvania company for insurance on lives and granting annuities. And then we've got one more legible plate over here that says Common Standard Tender Class 24-C-103. Here's a look at the front of the tender, and you're in for a real treat because on most O-scale tenders that I've seen, you don't typically see a lot of high-end detailing on the front side. Most of the detailing is usually cast in. In fact, that's the way it is on my other Vision Line steam engines, but that's not the case here. We've got some separately applied hand-painted detail parts down here. Then we've got some nice cast-in detailing all around. We've got separately applied metal grab irons here, 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 and then one way up here. And then right here we've got these metal doors that open up like that. There are 4 doors. When you open the top door, it opens the bottom door as well. And then the bottom doors open on their own. But how cool is that? And then finally, down to the bottom, we've got the drawbar, and that has the other infrared sensor that allows the electronics in the tender to communicate with the electronics in the engine. Here we have the back of the tender. We've got some operational marker lights here, here, and here, and they've all got separately applied metal conduits going to them, and it looks great. There's an operating backup light here, some separately applied metal grab irons down here as well as way up here. And then we've got a coupler cut bar down here. And then finally, we've got the electrocoupler that can be thrown from the Legacy or TMCC remote. Now let's take a look at the top of the tender. You know, in the world of O-scale steam engines, we typically don't see a lot of excitement out of a tender. They can be very beautiful on the outside, but all of the eye-catching features are usually found on the engine and not the tender. The tender is usually only the home to the electronics package and the sound system on the engine, but not in this case. The Vision Line Big Boy tender is the only tender in my collection, and really the only tender that I've ever seen that actually has an operational feature on board. And of course, I'm talking about the depleting coal feature. The coal load on the Vision Line Big Boy tender is not made out of real coal like you would find on most other high-end O-scale steam engines. Instead, it's made of a soft rubber. And that may seem a little weird at first, but the reason it's made out of rubber is because on the inside of the tender, underneath the coal load, there is a motorized device that pulls down and pushes up on the coal load in order to simulate the coal being used up and then the coal being replenished. Now, if that sounds like a cool feature, it's because it is. It is a very, very cool feature. And the best part is that in its default state, it is fully automated. As your train runs around the layout, very slowly the coal load will deplete until it gets to its lowest level. And then when you press a button on the remote, it'll reset it and refill the coal. And there's also a sound effect to go along with it when the coal refills. Again, very, very cool. What makes this feature even more amazing, however, is that not only is the depletion of the coal fully automated in its default state, but the system is also very flexible. If you want to, you can completely disable the depleting coal feature if you don't like it, or you can put it into a demonstration mode where the depletion and the refilling of the coal happen much faster than in the automated mode, and that way you can show it off to your friends without them having to wait around for the much slower automated process. Now, I do want to point out that while I've never seen this feature in an O-scale steam engine before, I have seen a feature similar to this in the past, and it came from MTH. For years, MTH has been making a depleting coal hopper car, and it has a rubber coal load in it, sort of like this, and then when you run the car over an activation track and press the button, it sucks the coal load down to give the illusion of the coal being dumped out, and then when it gets to the bottom, it resets and the coal comes back up to the top. So it's similar to this, but it's not quite as evolved. It's sort of like the progenitor of what we're seeing now because it's not at a very realistic speed. It sort of has a loud motorized sound to it, and it certainly isn't automated or anything like that. But it is interesting to see the progression of something that MTH has been doing for a while, and now it's been taken to the next level and put into a high-end O-scale steam engine. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about the depleting coal feature for now, but in a few minutes when we start this engine up, I'll give you a complete demonstration. Anyway, behind the coal load, we've got some nice wood grain on the deck up here, and then we've got some separately applied metal handrails on either side. There's a little toolbox right here, and then we've got 3 opening hatches. Under the first hatch, you'll find the master volume control for the sound system that's in the tender. Under the second hatch is the on-off switch for the depleting coal load, so if you don't like the depleting coal load, this is where you can turn it off. And then the third hatch lifts up, but there's nothing there. Finally, here's a look at the underside of the tender. There are 2 pickup rollers, one here and one here. There's an infrared sensor right here, which can be used in conjunction with the Lionel LCS sensor track, like the one that Lionel packaged with the big boy. And then we've got 2 speakers for the sound system down here, one here and one here that's just about right under this pickup roller. Okay, what I want to do next is to briefly show you the inner workings of the big boy. I had originally planned to open up my own big boy to take some shots of what's inside, but then I found that someone on the OGR forum already did that. One of the forum members, Alex M., took some great photos of the interior of his big boy, and so with his permission, I'm going to use his photos rather than tempting fate and opening up my own big boy to take essentially the same photos. I like to show what's on the interior of these engines from time to time because not only does it give you a good idea of how these engines work, but it also gives you a good idea of why these engines cost so much. I mean, these are not simply toy trains, these are precision models with computerized control systems and very specialized parts that are very expensive to design and build. I mean, these aren't parts that you can just walk down to your hardware store and buy off the shelf. They're very expensive to make, and therefore the models are very expensive. Anyway, here's an overall shot of what's on the inside of the locomotive. The front of the locomotive is at the lower left of the photo, and the back of the locomotive is at the top right. So starting in the front, you can see the smoke unit responsible for the twin smokestacks on the big boy. Behind that, you can see the smoke unit responsible for the whistle steam smoke effect. Behind that, we've got the soundboard and speaker for the locomotive. And then behind that, you can see the master control switchboard that I showed you earlier. And then behind and to the rear of that is the smoke unit and the tubing associated with the steam blowdown effect. And then behind that, of course, is the big flywheel motor that drives the big boy. Here's a couple shots of the inside of the tender. There are basically 2 things going on here. First of all, we've got the normal control and sound systems, which includes the 2 speakers that you see. That's what you'd find on the inside of most any Legacy-equipped tender. And then you've got the mechanism responsible for raising and lowering the coal load in the tender. So there's a whole lot more going on here than you'd find in your typical O-scale tender for sure. So that takes care of the interior shots of the big boy. And again, I'd like to thank Alex M. on the OGR forum for letting me use these pictures. Okay, the last thing we're going to do before we start the big boy up is BFIMO, best feature in my opinion. Well, you know, this engine has so many great features, but the one I'm going to pick is the one that has not been done before on an O-scale engine, and that is the depleting coal load in the tender. That is a new feature, and it's symbolic of the kind of innovation that makes the Vision line what it is. So for me, the best feature is that depleting coal load. Okay, now comes the fun part. We're going to go ahead and start the big boy up. I'm going to play some of the sounds and show you some of the features, and then we'll take it for a spin around the layout for a couple minutes. I've got it programmed into my Legacy remote on slot 92. So let's go ahead and start it up.
Union Pacific 4014. Do you read me? Over. Roger that. Union Pacific 4014. I copy that. Over. Start up and hold for track orders. Over. Okay, let's get to work. Out.
Okay, so first up, let's try the whistle And when I blow the whistle, of course, you will see the whistle steam smoke effect in action. Up next, let's check out the bell. Now let's check out some of the Crew Talk sounds on the big boy. And what makes them nice is that because this is a Vision Line engine, it does have road name and road number specific dialogue. And I know I say this in just about every review video these days, but I sort of have to put out this disclaimer. If you don't like the Crew Talk sounds, that's okay. You don't have to use them if you don't like them, but don't spoil it for the rest of us who do like them.
Hold your position. Over. Copy that. Standing by. 4014 out. UP 4014. You are cleared outbound. Over. Copy that. We have a clear signal. 4014 out. 4014 here. I'm in the clear, awaiting instructions. Over. Copy that, 4014. You're on your mark. Set your brakes and stand by. Out. 4014 here. Are we clear through the next block? Over. Yes, all clear ahead. Over. Copy that. Clear signals ahead. Out. UP 4014. You're clear inbound. Over. Yes, sir. Clear board. 4014 out. UP 4014. Come to a full stop. Over. Acknowledged. Full stop. Out.
Something I can show you now that the engine is on are the ground lights. There are 2 ground lights on each side of the engine, one here and one here, and they remain on until the engine reaches a speed of about 20 on the Legacy remote, at which point they automatically turn off. Okay, now let's check out the steam blowdown effect. The smoke is going to shoot out of this hole right here, and then at the same time, it'll be shooting out of an identical hole on the other side of the engine. Now again, to activate the steam blowdown effect, you press and hold the 6 key on the Legacy or TMCC remote. The longer you hold the button down, the longer the smoke will shoot out. And I'm sorry to say that if you're running the engine in conventional mode, the steam blowdown effect will not work. It only works in command mode. Anyway, let's give it a try. Pretty cool. Okay, now I'm going to show you the depleting coal feature on the tender. As I said before, in its natural state, it is a fully automated feature. So as you run your big boy around your layout, the coal load will very slowly deplete until it gets to its lowest point, and then you'll have to reset it and refill the coal. But to save time, I'm going to show it to you right now in demonstration mode so that everything happens faster. Now, to deplete the coal load in demonstration mode, on the Legacy remote, on the boost brake button, you pull down on the brake, and that will start the depletion of the coal. And there's a pretty cool sound effect to go with it as well, so let's give it a try. There it goes. And even though this is demonstration mode, which is faster, it's not lightning fast. It does take a couple minutes. is now at its lowest point, which may not look like much on the camera, but it's gone down by about an inch or so in the middle here. So to refill it, what we do is press the aux 1 key on the Legacy remote, and then press and hold the reset button or the 0 key. You don't have to press it forever. You just press it until the refill cycle begins, and then you can let go. And again, there's a cool sound effect to go with the refilling of the coal bin. So let's try it out. And there we go. And so very slowly, the coal load will come up to full level again. But again, it is faster than if we were to do it under normal operations. It's got a very realistic speed to it. And there we go. While we're looking at the tender, let me play one of the sound effects associated with it, and that is the sound effect of the tender being filled with water. And that's activated by pressing and holding what would be the 3 key on the Legacy or TMCC remote.
My water's full. Over. Copy that, 4014. Out.
Well, since we've got a full load of coal in the tender once again, this sounds like the perfect time to take the big boy for a spin around the layout. Okay, we're just about ready to move it out. I've got some UP passenger cars behind the big boy today, and in case you're wondering, the passenger cars are made by MTH. Now, before the engine starts rolling, I'm going to do 2 things. First of all, I'm going to activate sequence control on the engine by pressing and holding the aux 1 key on the Legacy remote until I hear the ding ding toot that lets me know that sequence control has been activated. Secondly, I'm going to activate one of the coolest features on the Vision Line Big Boy, which is the wheel slip feature. And the way to activate that, at least the way that I activate it, is that I pull all the way down on the train brake, and then with the train brake fully engaged on the Legacy remote, I then use the throttle wheel to throttle up to a speed of 1 or 2. And then what will happen is when I want the train to move, I will release the train brake all the way, and you will hear the sound of the wheels slipping until they gain traction and the engine starts moving. It is really, really cool. Now, the wheels don't actually slip because they've got traction tires on them, but you'll hear the sound effect of the wheels slipping, and it is super cool. So anyway, let's go ahead and do it.
Dispatcher, Union Pacific 4014 here. I've got clear boards. Over. Copy that, 4014. Out.
Okay, that about wraps it up for this review. This is a fantastic engine, and it is definitely a worthy addition to the Lionel Vision line of products. I hope it's not the last Vision line engine. I hope they continue to make more in the future. Personally, I'd like to see a small Vision line steam engine, something like a Penske B6, but of course that's just my opinion and everybody else has theirs. But anyway, if you're interested in purchasing one of these, the retail price is right at $2,700. Yes, these are very, very, very expensive, but this is a Vision line engine. It's the best of the best. If we were buying a car, it would be like buying a Lamborghini or a Bugatti. It's not like buying a Honda Civic. It is the best of the best, and it has a price tag to match. Now, if you go through a good Lionel dealer, you may be able to get a decent discount off that retail price. The pre-order price on the big boys, for those of us who were lucky and smart enough to order one in advance, was just under $2,000. And if you go through a good dealer, you may be able to get a price tag that's somewhere near that pre-order price. But if you want one of these, you need to order one sooner rather than later, because these were built under Lionel's built-to-order scheme, and so they only built as many as were ordered by dealers. Now, a lot of dealers ordered extras to have on hand, but those won't last forever. So if you wait too long, they may sell out, and then these will become very hard to find, which will make the price tag go up. So if you want one, you need to act quickly. And as always, if you're looking for a good Lionel dealer, you can try my favorite train store and the store that I bought my big boy from, which is Legacy Station. You can find them on the web at www.legacystation.com or give them a call at 770-339-7780. But anyway, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time. To discuss this model or any other O-Gauge trains and to meet other O-Gauge modelers, check out the O-Gauge Railroading Magazine online forum at ogrforum.ogaugerr.com. Now, when you get the engine out of the box, it will not have this whole assembly attached to the engine. It's packaged separately. See if I can pull this off here real quick. Oops. There it goes.